Before I get started, guys, I wanted to let you know that we did draw the winner for our massive giveaway for a bunch of Razor gear, a bunch of Blizzard gear. Congratulations to Tomboy, and thank you for everyone for entering. What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for Your Overwatch, and today is the beginning of the end, well, rather 2 days ago, I guess, when the PTR patch went live. If you don't know, I'll give you a quick refresher of the two major nerfs that are coming through to Mercy and Junkrat. The quick one is Junkrat, where his mines now have a fall-off radius, just like Tracer's Pulse Bomb. Gotta be a lot more accurate with them, but you can still get the 120 damage if you are. Got stuff to say about that, but it's a bit less drastic than the Mercy rework of the rework, where now she no longer gets instant res, no longer gets an extra res when she uses Valk, it's just on the cooldown. She's 50% slower during her Guardian Angel movement ability that puts her from target to target, and they put the duration from 20 seconds down to 15. I know a lot of Mercy players were probably shocked by the amount of nerfs that came through to Valkyrie, and I wanted to break down and navigate where does this put Mercy in the meta and what changes because of this coming through. First and foremost, I think the major playstyle difference of Mercy is that if it were to go to live, as it is on the PTR now, Mercy's strongest ability is that she is nimble and a very reliable healer that sometimes can get a res off, which does change the game. It changes what types of comps are viable. I can get more into detail about why that still is, even though res is definitely a lot worse. And her Valkyrie form now is far less of a responsive ult, but far more of a engagement ultimate. We're gonna go into the history books of Overwatch meta here to look back to how different changes have affected Overwatch over time. When Nano Boost originally was nerfed, back in the day, it used to give you speed boost as well as the other positive benefits, which made for the most lethal ultimate combination being the Beyblade. Reaper, Death Blossom with Nano Boost speed, ripping and tearing like Doom 2016 through the enemy team, and that was incredibly powerful. But when it got nerfed, Nano didn't immediately fall out of the meta, it just got repositioned to where its most meta strategy was, and that was onto the Soldier. Since you didn't get a distance upgrade when you had Nano because you could close the distance with speed, with that being removed, the range advantage that Soldier gives you with sights still gave you a lot of that punching power that the old combo did, and was sort of a workaround to still make use of it. In many ways, Mercy's Valkyrie is going to look like that type of set engagement ultimate when used now. Instead of some of your team dying and then you popping it to bring them back up, you almost solely want to use it in order to engage and damage boost another ultimate. It's sort of a set engage ult, just like just about every other support ult. Whereas right now on the live version of the game, Valkyrie is just sort of the ultimate of all ultimates. Because really, if I had to gauge the power level of what 20 seconds of Valkyrie beaming your entire team is, I would give it a quantity of about one normal support ult. Because of its flexibility, because of its duration, if you have that support ult and the enemy don't, you're still at a major advantage. There's still a lot of ways that you can utilize it, but there's just far more interplay and far more concerns about how to use it properly. Whereas right now, whenever you use it, as long as they don't have a good enough response, you basically just win. That's how powerful it is. Whereas moving into this PTR Valkyrie, you'd have to use it very carefully like you do Nano Boost, and I would argue the other ultimates that exist right now. The flexibility, though, of Valkyrie, I think, is vastly undersold, because if you think about Transcendence or Sound Barrier, if you try to engage with them and the enemy simply run away, you very easily can outlast them. Whereas Valkyrie is like the only ultimate in the game, really, that you have a big leniency in the timing that you use it. If you're fighting at a choke and you're trying to siege through, the other ults can just fall flat and leave you with nothing to show for yourself. Whereas damage boosting your entire team and and then also being able to heal up chip damage. Unless they have a powerful ultimate to blast through it, Valk is still really strong, even without the reses, and that's what's crazy. But where do we view the power level of this ultimate? Is it now so far down that it's below the other supports in the game? Honestly, I evaluate Mercy's new state to be quite similar to the power level of Mercy 1.0 at the high levels of play, but a lot worse for the lower levels of play. So much so that I really think that Blizzard should start to think about just reverting Mercy. And I know that's a very controversial opinion. I'm sure no one really ever seemed to agree with me that I really enjoyed the way that you had to outplay and play Mercy 1.0, where she had to play basically cat and mouse to try to use her positioning, timing, and play a little bit of hide and seek and ult economy in order to figure out how to make the best impact with res, and it was on the enemy to make sure they didn't over ult or found the Mercy in order to outplay it. The only problem was at the higher levels of play, players were so good at finding Mercy, you almost never used it for the big res, for resing up 5 people. At high levels of play, players are so good at ult economy and coordination that that wasn't really a thing. But it was a thing at most ranks of play. The majority of the matchmaking experience, players either because their mechanical ability isn't as good to burst down the Mercy before she flew in to get the res, or the coordination isn't quite there to make sure that someone goes to find her, or they over ult and then Mercy swings back the ult economy. Mercy really would punish poor play in that way. Well, now the new Mercy is going to be very hard to play, I think, at the lower ranks of play, because the only way really to utilize Valkyrie is in that set engagement way, in the same way where you would have to make sure that you get your nano Genji blade executed properly to set up to get it into the enemy team. You kind of have to do that with Valk too. You have to sort of have a plan, get your soldier over here, have good positioning, pop it at the right time to get that oomph out of the damage boost, and then the healing sort of maintains you through that. Valk is still good at doing that, but not really good at anything else. And that's a much harder play to make at most ranks of play, but it is possible to be used at the higher ranks of play, which ultimately where I come down on it, Mercy's power level at the higher tier is about where it was in 1.0, where she kind of was a niche hero. She got paired with Pharah all the time. If you're running Pharah, you want a Mercy. The combo is just too strong. But also, especially at near the end of the dive meta, before all of these major changes happened to the game, a lot of pro teams were experimenting with pocketing a Widowmaker, much like you do with Pharah, for the reasons of if your Widow is really strong, the NYXL Widow named Pine, who's incredible. He did have that bad round against Fleta, I know, but Pine is an incredible Widowmaker, and they sort of pioneered this strategy by pocketing her and letting her keep parrying away, and as long as you keep Pine alive long enough, he's eventually going to hit a critical shot, and that damage amp really helps out Widow. Again, if your Widow's pretty good. Not just because it increases the body shot, but it also reduces the time that a charge shot can become lethal to the head, and that's very underrated as well. It kind of allows you to quick scope a Tracer or a Genji in ways that you normally wouldn't. So the point I'm trying to make is, this new Mercy in PTR form probably puts her very close to where she was before all of this got changed at the high ranks, but far worse for the low ranks. So much so that it's my conclusion that it's revert time, which I think Blizzard isn't too prideful to do. When I was a big fan of StarCraft 2, they went back and forth on balance patches based upon the context of the time over and over again. I think the build time of a Zealot was changed like 10 times. And I think Mercy is in that place now too. I'm interested to know what you guys think about all this. At this point, would you rather just have Mercy 1.0 back? I think if they're looking to put Mercy's main ability into Valkyrie, just the beam heal, it probably can be 20 seconds. I don't think it needs to be 15. Or even if they just get one res instantly during Valk, that would be pretty balanced as well. It seems like they did try to do too many different things with this, but to be honest, she still isn't useless in this state. That's how OP she was before this point, where taking away almost all of her tools and leaving her just with the Valk beam splitting leaves her still in a usable state. We'll still see a bit of Mercy. She'll just be around the niche pick rate that she was before the rework. At the high levels of play, I think the Mercy beam Valk was better than Res 1.0 because you almost had to always use Res in order to equalize a pick off anyway. Whereas a Valkyrie split beam is a tool that can more convincingly win a fight actively, whereas the amount of times in pro play where a big res flipped a fight entirely is really small because pro teams just don't let it happen to them really. And now Mercy Valk is much more similar in usage and power to all the other support ults, and still will get used in Pharmacy Dive Comp to enable a Widowmaker defense and things like this. But beyond that, this new Mercy is going to be way below what Mercy 1.0 was for the majority of ranked players. So much so that I'm pretty confident that Mercy will get a few more nudges up in power. Maybe, for instance, Valk halves the cast time of Rez, and maybe you do get a charge, but we'll have to see as this ends up going live. Talk the entire video about Mercy, but we will mention Junkrat. What does the nerf do to Junkrat? Well, I think it's quite a fair nerf, actually, because the better you are at Junkrat, the less you're going to be affected by the nerf, which I think is overall a good thing, because part of the problem that they were looking to address, I think, was how easy it was for any level of Junkrat to get a similar value. It was more so that the output of the character was better than the player utilizing it, whereas now you're really going to be able to differentiate yourself between Junkrat players. I like that they did a minor nerf on Junkrat. It's the type of nerf I wanted to see because I wanted him to focus more on being able to hit his primary fire rather than having guaranteed lethal damage out of his mine. I thought that was a little bit too much. I think Junkrat will still see quite a bit of play where you've already seen him. He'll just be a bit weaker in the matchups that he probably should have been weak in, namely to like Pharah, Genji, Tracer. With the mine being 120 with a full blast radius, you just couldn't really engage on him, and he didn't have a weakness because if he was decent with his nades, he always had that lethal option with the mine that it was really hard to miss. But now Junkrats can still win those duels, I think, as long as you are a lot better with your mine. Keeping in mind too, Junkrat's major utility is the heavy lifting damage he does towards the major team comp. He already was insane at that. It was that he also was able to duel really, really well without needing as much skill as other characters in the game. And now I think he still has that power. You just need a bit more skill to do that, which is a change that I personally don't find too egregious. Well, that's everything for reviewing the PTR update that came through a couple days ago. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, please leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're going to want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news, updates, and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Freedo for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.